Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today, we're going to be going over another unique item, or rather, I should say, a mythic unique. And this is the Grandfather, the Grandpapa. The Grandpapa has changed a bit from its previous versions. In fact, it's had many versions over the many different versions of the game. In fact, a lot of items have changed a lot, so, yeah. But the newest version is purple, and as you can clearly see, instead of having the regular color, it now has a purpley glowing color. Make sure I relock that so I don't accidentally delete it by accident. I accidentally deleted my Andariels, so shame on me. um, the Grandfather is now a mythic unique. I don't really particularly fond of the name, but I do like the color change. I think it's rather interesting. They've also changed the weapon quite a bit. One of the first things that you'll notice that they changed is that the ignores durability loss is currently on the passive effect, which is pretty cool. So basically what the ignores durability loss does is it makes it so that none of your items take damage. This is something that we really didn't know when the Grandfather first came out, but now we do. Like, it's not just that the Grandfather doesn't break, it's that nothing on your character will break at all if you're using the Grandfather, which is pretty cool. So you can die about 1,000 times and still not have to go back and repair. They also added on a 150% damage bonus additive, which of course is going to apply to all of your damage, but also it is a passive bonus, so it does not get affected by greater affixes. And that's one of the reasons why they moved the ignores durability loss to the passive section, is because it was actually getting affected by the greater affixes. They said that it was rolling greater affix, even though it didn't show that it was rolling greater affix, and of course it did nothing because ignored durability loss doesn't have a greater affix bonus. On top of this, they bumped up the all stats significantly to 150 all stats, which is crazy. And on top of this, we've also got 3,359 maximum life. They also threw on maximum resource on there, which I think is really cool because, quite honestly, a lot of builds these days with the Barbarian and honestly with the Necromancer too tend to involve maximum resource. So why not? Like Bone Spirit, Bone Spear, Ramalani's Magnum Opus, etc. They also gave it another flat damage bonus of 300%, which is a rather large amount of flat damage bonus as well. So it has a total of 450, and of course can get enhanced even further than that. In fact, I actually saved it just for this video. You can of course masterwork it. So if you take it and you put it into the masterworking and you beef it up, you can of course beef it up by 25% on a single affix. Like now I've got 4,702 life on there. 23 max resource, 173 all stats, 345% damage, and so forth and so on. And we can upgrade it again, of course, to the next tier, which is going to get us, okay, a double roll on the maximum life. Certainly, kind of ridiculous there. And quite honestly, just an amazing weapon all around. Now, the special effect on this weapon is increases your critical strike damage by 100% times. The other properties on this weapon can roll higher than normal. Now, you can actually see it go up, but I don't think it actually displays properly in this window. But when you put on the sword, you will notice a rather large increase in your critical strike damage. However, it seems to do a lot more than what it actually states here. It is literally a direct multiplier to your critical strike damage, and your crits just hit harder. There's a lot of builds that could take advantage of critical strike damage. I mean, who wouldn't like a huge additional bonus of critical strike damage, huge amounts of increased damage output, and so forth and so on? Some of the interesting builds that can get the most use out of this are things like Gushing Wounds, of course, which scales based on critical strike damage, which is kind of interesting. So also increases by 100% of your critical strike damage bonus. Now, because it also scales resource, it tends to work very well with other builds that scale based on resource. Like I said, Ramalani's Magnum Opus, which has been changed significantly, and we'll have to do a video on that as well. But the Ramalani's Magnum Opus has a very nice scaling capability. In fact, they bumped it up to 0.5 this season, which is pretty good, but good luck finding a 0.5. And of course, that means you're going to get a 0.5 damage increase per maximum resource. So if you get, for instance, the 26 maximum resource that I currently have, that's 26 times 0.5. So we got, what is that, 13? So 13 times multiplier just for putting on the sword. On top of this, the all stats is very interesting because the all stats gives you just a huge bonus to basically all of your statistics. Now, granted, obviously every class has their own specific stat that they are going to be worried about. But if you're not a barbarian and you don't care about strength, you still get armor. If you're not a necromancer or a sorceress, well, necromancer is the only one that can wear it. If you're not a necromancer and you don't care about, or if you don't care about intelligence in general, you still get resistances from intelligence. Willpower still gives you overpower damage, healing received, resource generation, and dexterity, of course, still gives you dodge chance. So getting a nice little bump in all of these is certainly not terrible. As you can see, I go from 2.2% dodge chance to 4.1% dodge chance. So I get basically almost 1.9% increased dodge chance just for putting this sword on, which is pretty crazy. And if you look at some of the other statistics, you'll see like my overpower goes from 53.7 to 102.5. So it's not only is it giving you this huge amount of damage bonus in terms of the 390 and the 150 that are flat damage bonuses to your character, also giving you the multiplier and the 26 maximum resource, but it's also giving you a very nice damage bump through the willpower and dexterity by giving you more critical strike chance, more overpower damage, more resource regeneration, more resistances to all elements, more armor, which is all very nice. On top of this, the life on this thing is pretty insane, and the life actually also translates to damage. So one of the things that you will find out if you build an overpower character is that overpower is based off of your maximum life, and it's also based off of your fortify, which is also based off of your maximum life. So the more maximum life you have, the higher your overpower gets, and the more life you have, the higher your fortify gets, and the higher your fortify gets, the more overpower damage you have, and it's a very reciprocal, or just it just works very well. Let's just put it that way. So having a huge amount of maximum life on here can also increase your damage, especially when you're dealing with overpowers. The increased critical strike damage itself is obviously going to help out just about everybody, including bleed builds with the Barbarian. I'm also very excited to try out the Grandfather now, because since it has scaling maximum resources, maybe on something like a Bone Spirit Necromancer. That could be very fun, just to see how powerful I could potentially make the Bone Spirit Necromancer now. It's definitely a beautiful weapon, I tell you that much. And it also has a very special graphic on it too, which we can take a look at that as well. Is that the Grandfather has a very pretty graphic, and if you do destroy it, like at the end of a season or something like that, you can get the graphic to put on any of your characters, which is pretty cool. And of course, this is not a sword that came specifically from Diablo 4. This is an older weapon that came from previous games, and I probably could pull up the Grandfather. From D2. That's a good one to pull up. Let's pull up the Grand Papa. That's a terrible image, but sure enough, here we go. So this is the Grandfather from D2, and as you can see, it was indestructible, which kind of matches with the ignores durability loss. It had a large amount of damage on it. It did have all attributes, as you can see, and it did have life. So they kind of matched it up similarly. It didn't have critical strike damage on it, but that wasn't really a thing in D2. It did, however, have a huge bonus to your maximum damage, and up until the point where grief kind of like started to dominate, the Grandfather was actually a very powerful weapon. In fact, if they took the indestructible modifier off of there for the Grandfather, there's a very good chance that, well, it probably would be best in slot again, because you could put like a Zodroot in it or something. It's pretty neat. I'm pretty sure there was also a Diablo 1 Grandfather, if I remember correctly, although I probably am not. Yes, there was a Diablo 1 Grandfather, and it was a great sword. As you can see here, 70% damage, 5 to all attributes, 20% to hit, 20 to life. As you can see, they've kind of kept the theme of it pretty similar, is that, it's all attributes, life, and basically large amounts of damage, which is, basically what the Grandfather does. And it's definitely a very pretty sword. Personally, I think that because it's a two-hander, it is kind of hard to work into some builds, considering that you have to give up a two-handed aspect for it. And depending on what kind of build you're running, the unfortunate truth is that you might not want to give up a two-handed aspect for this. It's kind of sad. The flavor text on this says, an unbroken lineage of unwavering strength. It also only requires level 35. So a very interesting thing about this is that, well, you can just put this on a new character. So it doesn't have any level requirement, and if you masterwork it, the level requirement doesn't go up. The only reason the level requirement will go up is if you put gems in it, and you can always just take the gems out. So for instance, if I go ahead and grab this right now, and we're going to go ahead and just add some sockets to this bad boy, because why not? And let's say I were to craft I'm trying to do a basic build, so let's just go ahead and get 2 flawless topazes, right? So we put these in here, and you'll notice that the level requirement goes up to 60. Now that's not permanent, and if you do strip the gems out of it, you can bring it back down to 35. And let me tell you what, running around in World Tier 2 as a level 35 character, or even World Tier 3 as a level 35 character, with a fully kitted out grandfather maxed out with masterworking is rather insane. Um, it's I recently did this. I recently just kind of like decked out this character with all of my uber uniques that I've been finding across the season. This is only what, like day 7 or 8, and like I got a Harlequin crest, Tyraels, a Melted Heart, a Ring of the Stylus, and a Grandfather, and I just put all of them on this character and just laughed my way to the bank, as I literally at level 35 was able to, just like one shot everything and tank the world. And we were in like World Tier 4 killing stuff as like level freaking like 40 characters with a bunch of gear. It was pretty hilarious. It's definitely an interesting thought to keep in mind if you're thinking about making your first Uber Unique, is that you can potentially use this to farm other Uber Uniques. And how would you potentially do that? Well, let's get to the topic of how do you get yourself a grandfather. Well, there's a couple different ways that you can get yourself a grandfather. First off is you can find it from Duriel or Andariel, which are just regular bosses, and they're spawned with the materials that you can obtain throughout the world, like sandstorm shackles, mucus slick eggs, shards of agony, and so forth and so on. There are also the tormented bosses, and the tormented bosses do require a Stygian stone, and the Stygian stones are a little rare, but they're not like super duper rare. You can usually get your hands on quite a bit of them. I have 11 of them in my inventory right now that I can definitely use for doing some uber bosses. And by fighting the tormented versions, you have a better chance of getting access to some of the uber uniques. Also, the reputation quest, which is currently active in Zarbenzet, the final box of the reputation quest will give you 1 resplendent spark. You can also get 1 resplendent spark for killing 1 of the tormented bosses. It doesn't really matter which one. You can also get another tormented, a resplendent spark for killing Uber Lilith, which is another way that you can get a spark. And as you can also see here, this is the reputation boxes right here. And I can, of course, as soon as I get to this box right here, I will get a resplendent spark. As you can see, it says there, it says contains a greater guaranteed ancestral legendary with 925 item power and 2 greater affixes, as well as a resplendent spark. So you can do this on every character, by the way, not just one character. So you can actually do the reputation grind on multiple characters, and every single character that you grind out can get 1 spark. You only need 4 sparks, obviously, to get yourself a uber unique, and it doesn't really take very long before you can make the resplendent sparks cap out. I've actually crafted 2 items thus far. I've crafted the Grandfather, and I've also crafted the Tyrael's Might, so I've gotten a total of 8 sparks. Some of those have come from characters, and some of those have come from me destroying uber uniques that I found that were duplicates. So definitely think about that when you're trying to get your resplendent sparks, because you just make a couple characters, level up, and get your sparks. And then think about this: if you have yourself a grandfather, if you get that one first, or if you have yourself a Doombringer, for instance, which I don't have yet, those are both 925 weapons, and they can be exceptionally effective at helping you level up multiple characters to the maximum. The maximum box to get those resplendent sparks. So the Grandfather and the Doombringer can definitely be a very solid option to help you grind out more uber uniques as you go forward. You might also consider just simply getting yourself a nice little newbie set of equipment that you have available to you, and just simply grind out maybe the same character multiple times. That way you can get access to multiple sparks and craft yourself the ones that you want. You can actually get greater affixes through crafting. This is the Tyrell's Might that I crafted, and I did get a greater affix roll on the movement speed, which I was super excited about. I run around like a crackhead at this point. I got so much movement speed, I don't even know what to do with it all. I'm currently sitting at 195.4%, which is just shy of the 200% bonus that you can potentially have, which is insane. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about the Grandpapa in the newest version of 1.5.0. I will endeavor to keep these updated, and I hope you'll join me for more of these unique item videos. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.